up, everybody? Welcome to The Sweat. I'm your host, Jessie Coffield. Today, we're getting into everything from NBA to NHL. And of course, we start with our NFL panel, DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich, Jeff Ulrich, and RotoWire's Alan Sizlowski. Guys, this is NFL too high or too low. So are these odds and lines too high, aka too long, or too low, aka too short for week 18 in the NFL? All right. Bills still have a division to win, right, guys? And they go into their matchup with the Jets as massive 16-point favorites. Now, the Jets hung with the Bucs last week. So is 16 points too high, Pierce?
Yeah, it's a tad bit too high. If you look at the last 20 years and you look at double-digit favorites playing in January, a regular season game against a losing team, it's only 9-8 in covering the spread. That's double digits. That's 10, 11, 12. This is a really big number. There's a lot of different circumstances to this being the last week of the season. The Bills have been good as double-digit favorites, 4-2-2 over the last 3 seasons, 3-1-2 at home. But it's just, this is a different week. This last week of the season, the Bills don't need to push for full 4 quarters. And I would imagine that the Jets are going to get that backdoor cover late in this game. I think it's too high.
Jeff, do you agree too high?
Oh, not really, actually, as I get out of focus here. But no, I actually think that, there we go. I think that the Bills are like deserving to be pretty big favorites. There's 16 points. You're saying, yeah, it gets over 14. It does feel a little bit too high. But I mean, what are the Jets going to throw out here that really scares us against the Bills? I mean, the Bills still need to win to wrap up this division. And I mean, they're just a pretty solid cover team. Even in this season where they've been up and down, they've got a solid record against the spread, 8-6. 8-6-2. And I mean, again, you know, we've seen double-digit favorites this year just be really, really solid against the spread. I think that with Josh Allen coming towards the end of the year and just with the Jets kind of having just nothing to play for in this spot, I think that the Bills probably just put one on and maybe just cruise. I think it could come down close in the end. And I mean, I'm not saying this is my favorite spot or anything, or put the house on the Bills, but you know, if you ask me what side to play here, yeah, I would go with the double-digit favorite here in Buffalo.
Alan, what do we think?
A little too high. This is a massive line, but the Bills do need to win for seeding purposes, and so it does feel about right. I would take the points here, but I don't feel strongly about it. Zach Wilson's been good enough the last couple of weeks to halt the bust certainty label. The Jets beat the Titans. They beat Cincinnati early in the season, and they had the Bucs on the ropes before Tom Brady threw a haymaker on that 90-plus yard drive. The Jets are a bad team, but they're not a complete doormat like the Jaguars.
All right, guys. 2 very low totals in 2 games that don't expect to see much offense with backup quarterbacks. 37.5 is the total for Washington and the Giants, as well as for the Bengals-Browns game without Mayfield and Burrow. So I have a feeling, though, that Pierce thinks they're both still too high. Am I right, Pierce?
That's not the truth. I think that they are actually too low. I looked into the trends, being that this is a unique week, being the last week of the season, the last 20 years. You look at teams with an over-under of 40, it's 34-18 to the over. So these games with very low spreads typically go over. The last 10 years, it's 8-4. It's followed that trend. Another unique trend over the last 20 years, when you have a low point total in the AFC North, the money line, the favorite is 1-7. So I think you might want to give a hard look to the Bengals at plus 195 in this game.
All right, what do we think, Jeff? 37.5.
I mean, I admit, I do like that Bengals call. And look, Brandon Allen is starting. We know he can spin it a little bit. Put up like 10 yards per completion, well over 300 yards last year against the Texans. I like the over in that game a lot, actually, 37.5. Case Keenum might be an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I mean, that's not even hyperbole. Baker was playing injured, and I'm not even sure if he's good anyways. So I think that the quarterbacks in that game will be fine. It's the New York Giants-Washington game. You're going to want to fade. That's fine. Take the under there. Jake Fromm, 6 for 17, 25 yards passing, and a 19.5 passer rating in his start this year. That game is going like 20-3, and you can mark me down because that's probably going to be the end score. That game is one you're going to want to fade. The AFC North matchup, I do think there'll be some points. I think it could get a little crazy, and I do like the Bengals money line is there, but take the over in the Bengals one. I think the point total there is just, it's too low.
Alan, 37.5. How do we feel?
I think Jeff just called Jake Fromm like a poor man's Nathan Peterman there or something like that.
Yes.
If the Giants can complete a forward pass in this game, maybe they'd have a chance to get the number, but the betting market is likely to see it the same way. I'd anticipate the number creeps down a little bit for anyone even paying attention to this game on Sunday. The contrarian in me wants to play the over now that Barkley finally got over 100 yards last week, but this is a moment in time as a Jet fans, and there aren't many that the Jets have more hope than the Giants. As far as the Joe Burrow and Baker Mayfield are out, my colleague Chris Liss over at RotoWire pointed out that one is not like the other. Burrow missing the game is a massive downgrade, while Jeff and Pierce pointed out that Mayfield to Keenum is not even that much of a difference. The under is safe, assuming the Bengal key pass catchers are limited to.
All right, guys, not quite the drama of a win in your in-game like Chargers and Raiders, but the Ravens and Steelers are still technically alive. Jeff, you said yesterday you were surprised that they were underdogs in this one. So is this spread of 5 points for the Ravens way too high for you?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily surprised that they're not the favorites, but just surprised that the spread is this big. I mean, I just don't know what the Baltimore Ravens have shown us over the last 5 games to warrant being -5 favorites in any situation. I mean, this is a team who we all knew was riding the right side of variance in these close end-of-game situations at the start of the year, and now it's cratered, and they're still getting respect for some reason. Like the Steelers, I get it. I mean, I get that Ben Roethlisberger averages like 3 yards per pass attempt, but their defense is really good. TJ Watt is chasing the sack record here. Lamar Jackson, if he starts, is not going to be 100%, and the Ravens secondary is terrible. Deontay Johnson might catch 20 balls for like 100 yards in this game. And yeah, the volume won't be there, but he'll move the sticks. I think Pittsburgh at +5 is a fantastic bet this week. They have more to play for. And quite frankly, they're the healthier, better team. So yeah, give me Pittsburgh here. I really like this bet.
All right, Alan, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, the line is obviously too high, so the Ravens must be the sharp side. Vegas is begging you to take the Steelers. I don't mind being Joe Public or a square and taking the points in this game. This is a good bet to be a field goal game at best. I see these teams as about equals. Just give me the Steelers. Give me the points. Let's bank some money.
All right, Pierce, talk to me.
Can I get the breaking news music?
Oh, dun, 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 dun.
So according to the DK Live account, Deontay Johnson just went on the COVID-19 list. That shakes things up a little bit. That's a pretty significant blow for the Steelers. And other than that, I'm right with Jeff. This pass rush for the Steelers played great last week. 9 sacks on Mayfield, 33% pressure rate. Had a very similar pressure rate last time they faced the Ravens. Ravens 27th in adjusted sack rate, so that offensive line struggled all season. We know that their pass defense is probably one of the few pass defenses that Roethlisberger can get around. He understands the scheme. He matches up well against the scheme. And then on top of that, the Ravens are just missing everybody in their defense. And Roethlisberger had his second best quarterback rating of the season against them in that Week 11 matchup with a 111. It's going to hurt not having Deontay Johnson. He had 15 targets on Monday. And I don't know really what they're going to do. Maybe with the new rules, he'll be back. I don't know. You got to keep your eye on that. But ignoring that, I do like the Steelers to cover.
Pretty deep receiving core. I mean, James Washington, Ray McLeod, Chase Claypool, if he's not dancing. I mean, I think the line will probably move to 6 now, so you might just want to wait on it, but I still like Pittsburgh too.
All right, guys, a few player props are up for the game of the week. Chargers at Raiders. Both teams rank in the bottom 10 of rush defenses in the league. Josh Jacobs' rush yards prop is 53.5. Austin Eckler's 56.5. Too high or too low for these running backs, Alan?
This is a good number for Austin Eckler. Eckler makes his money with the receiving yardage. That's how he gets his totals. But the question as to whether he smashes his total is how much they deploy Justin Jackson. Last week, the touch split was 17-12 in favor of Eckler. The Jags beat the Colts. Unthinkable 40 kneel down game. If we have that, then of course it's going to go under. We talked about that when the cameras are off. But assuming that they play, this is a quasi win now spot. Eckler is the trusted hand and should get the larger workload, and he's seen all season. So I like over there. Josh Jacobs has come alive. They hand him the ball. This is the type of weather that this is going to be an ugly game. The Raiders are going to try to run. I like the over on both of these props.
All right, Pierce, how do we feel?
The number's too high for Eckler. He's only gone over 60 yards 10 times this season. As Alan mentioned, he's more of a receiving back, and that's kind of the better opportunity here against the Raiders, who not necessarily terrible against receiving running back, but they're definitely below average and have had a top 10 run defense. So I don't think it's really going to be an easy matchup for Eckler. And then one of the things And he averages 56 yards. The number's kind of right on. I still think it's going to be a little too high. Corey Linsley, who is the free agent center that they brought in the offseason, he's kind of like a genius center. He anchors that offensive line. He turned them into from one of the worst offensive lines to average to below average, or well, above average. And he might be out for this game. If he is out, I think that's really going to hurt the Austin Eckler rushing totals. And so I think he'll go under.
Jeff, too high or too low?
Yeah, I mean, this line feels exactly perfect for both of these running backs. And it does kind of make me want to lean under, probably more on Eckler as well than Josh Jacobs. You look at Eckler, like he's had double-digit carries in 9 straight games, but he's also never exceeded like 14 carries or something. So, I mean, he's going to get right in there. But Pierce mentioned the O-line issues as well. And the Raiders, to their credit, have actually improved as a rush defense, like just a little bit as the season has gone on here at the end. I think this game's going to be close. I think you're going to see more passing too from both offenses than rushing, really. So I'm not looking at Eckler to all of a sudden get 18 carries here. Alan mentioned Justin Jackson. I would take the under on Eckler. I think I would be more inclined to either just not touch Jacobs altogether or maybe even take the over. He's improved as a rusher. He's gotten a little bit healthy a bit as well. And if the Raiders do get out in front here, they've actually run the ball a little bit more lately. So Jacobs is probably one I'd either fade or even think about taking the over if you like the Raiders side. I think the under on Eckler is actually a solid bet here.
Dallas 3-4 this year, Nick, against teams with a winning record. The last time came in New England back in October. So obviously it's been a little while. As we know, the offense has really been inconsistent in the second half of the year. Defense has been a little up and down. Nothing basically went right against Arizona last time out. A lot of penalties again. Dallas has been kind of afflicted by that at points this year. So what's the key to just finding some consistency here in time for the playoffs?
Well, I mean, this team just needs to, they need to figure out kind of how to win games. And I know that sounds really cliche, but they're not – it's a tough team to figure out because nothing is perfect. Nothing is terrible. It's just that they're solid. They're in some areas above average in others. And so it's hard when you can't count on anything. You can't just say the passing game will be there or the running game will be there or the defense. We'll get turnovers because we thought that was kind of the case, and nothing is at that point. So you're just kind of leery of a lot of things, even though you've seen everybody play at a top level. It's a good team, but it's tricky to evaluate because based off the matchup and all that, they might not, they might get to the playoffs and it may be a disappointing thing. They could make a run. I'm throwing every scenario out there, but that's what we've seen for this team. We've seen Dak play like an MVP candidate. We've seen Dak play like, should they draft a quarterback next year? We've seen it all. We've seen this huge scope, and it's really tough. So, I don't think you can get much out of this game. I think they're just going to try to get through it, survive, don't have a lot of injuries, and get yourself ready because you can make the case all you want to about, well, they need to play and get some momentum. Well, what did momentum give them against the Cardinals? They had won 4 in a row, and they go to Arizona and looked like they had never played before for a while. So I don't know if momentum carries over much. When you get in that playoff game, they should be jacked up for whoever and whenever it is.
Welcome back into the sweat, guys. I am Jeff Ulrich, and Jessie Coffield's computer has died, so I will be taking over as host of this show. Got a little NBA action coming to you. We got Gary and Thor, Matt Measelman, Nick Whalen coming at you for a 4-game NBA slate today. And first question, guys, which game is going over today? Gary, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this isn't really a slate that I'm pumped to take many overs on. We've got like Golden State, who has hit the fewest overs of any NBA team this season. Great matchup against the Pelicans, I guess, but we don't really know the status of Steph Curry. You've got the Knicks and the Celtics. They've been unders machines all season long as well. I guess I would just say I'll take the over in whatever game Detroit's playing in right now. Their defense looks so atrocious last night. Gave up 140 points. They're on the second night of a back-to-back. So realistically, that unit alone could do enough to make any over hit, but I'm not even crazy confident about that one because their offense is so terrible. So I'll say the Pistons game, but I don't feel overly strongly about it.
All right. Sounds like Garion wants to take the under in almost every game today. Matt, do you have any strong feelings about an over anywhere, or is this just a slate where we should be taking the unders at will?
Yeah, it's kind of that. My strongest take right now for the day is that I don't think Draymond Green is going to play either. When Steph rests, they tend to rest Draymond also. And from what Steve Kerr said last night, it sounds like Curry's not playing. But the total for this game has moved down already from 218 to 213 roughly. And the problem is I can't really recommend anything based on Green not playing because even though he's a really good defensive player, you would think, oh, maybe there'd be some overs when he's out. He also drives the pace of the game too. So I think that's kind of a wash as far as the total. So that's not really very exciting. More of a spread and props thing, but not for totals. So if I have to pick one, I'm going to say that the over hits in New York, Boston. To me, it's an overcorrection that the total has dropped 3 points. It was 211. Now it's 208. Maybe it should have been 211. And people are betting unders in this game. That's what it seems like. This is the one where the public is on the under. So I'll go over for that reason. Okay,
Nick. Matt's taking the New York game. Garion's semi-targeting the Detroit game, although it sounds very reluctant. Do you have any strong overs for us? Or again, is this just like a slate we should be taking unders?
No, I think these guys laid it out perfectly. I'm sorting through like the over-under numbers this morning, trying to find like some sort of stat that I can recite that would inspire any like speck of optimism that any of these games feel like a lot to go over. And, what I kept coming back to is the logic that Garion laid out, which is just target the Pistons, assume they're going to give up 130 and hope that they can hold up their end of the bargain and put up enough points to put this one over, which, last night they got over 100. Credit to them. They gave up 140 to the Charlotte Hornets. Chances are Memphis isn't going to put up a total that large. But this is a Grizzlies team that certainly is more talented, has a ton of options beyond John Morant, beyond Jaren Jackson. So if I had to pick, that's the game I think I would lean toward.
All right. This is all very upsetting news to me as someone who likes to bet overs every day, but let's see if there's any overs in the player props, guys. Obviously you can bet unders as well, but Matt, let's go back to you. Is there a specific player prop on the slate that you want to target tonight?
Yeah, we don't have enough time because I could probably list like 10 of these. I think this is a really good night for props because there's a lot of injury scenarios that could dictate some value here. But I'll stick with the Warriors where to me, it looks like the Andrew Wiggins line and the Gary Payton Jr. line, or Gary Payton II, I think you have to call him the second. Those numbers for all of their stats are essentially pricing in that Steph Curry is not going to play. What they're not pricing in is the chance that Draymond doesn't play, which I guess I'm the only one who really thinks that because Draymond Green's name is on the board too. His props are also available. So really this just comes down to, I don't think Draymond's going to play and the market does, which means you're going to get some extra time for Kevon Looney going up against Jonas Valanciunas. Like they're going to need a big body out there. And that really, like without Draymond, they have to play him. And then Wiggins just has to do more too. Like the line's already moved up because Curry's out. But if Draymond's out too, that's just more responsibility for Wiggins in all parts of the game. So I'm looking, it's 27.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Wiggins, 14.5 for Looney. Assuming Draymond doesn't play, I like both of those.
Okay, there you go. Nick, anyone you want to target specifically?
Yeah, I like 2 points props from that game. And one of them is Andrew Wiggins, who, like Matt laid out, I think that number is a little bit low. And, if you want to go points, rebounds, assists, you can certainly look in that direction. But 20.5 just for points, I think is pretty good value. And, you're getting minus 115. So it's, you're not going to wind up with $1 million here. But without Steph Curry and potentially without Draymond, I think, Andrew Wiggins essentially becomes the number one or, 1B at worst scoring option for the Warriors tonight. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. And Jonas Valanciunas as well from that game. I think, potentially removing Draymond from the situation, not that he's a great, 1-to-1 matchup for Valanciunas, but certainly you like Valanciunas' chances to play well in that game. His number is only 17.5. He's gone over that easily in his last 2 games since returning from COVID protocols at 25 and 16 against a good Suns team in his last game. I mean, he's just been so ridiculously consistent this season. It feels like he's going over that number almost every single night. So, potentially removing a couple of key players for Golden State makes me like Valanciunas even more.
All right, Gary, and 2 votes for Wiggins. He's Canadian. Come on, we got to make it around here, right? Let's go. You like him too, obviously.
Not just a Toronto native. Went to school like 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. Yeah, I'd go in on that Wiggins over. I think it makes a lot of sense. I will say the prop I'm targeting not in that game, going back to the Celtics-Knicks game. Little worried about overs here just because the Knicks have really just been running like a glacially slow pace their last 10 games. They're not even just lowest pace in the NBA across that span. It's lowest by a pretty wide margin. But I like Jayson Tatum's points, rebounds, and assist prop. It's at 33.5 right now. The over is -125. Some guys have taken a little bit of time to like reacclimatize themselves after being in the COVID protocols. Not Jayson Tatum. Played 37.3 minutes last night, took 20 field goal attempts, wasn't very efficient, so he wouldn't have actually hit this prop, but I'm just encouraged by the amount of volume we saw. It seems like he's just going to be back to his full role, which is one of the guys who was leading the NBA in minutes played before going on the COVID list. So I think if you've got Tatum playing like that, especially considering he's grabbed at least 8 rebounds in his last 6 games. So if he's just going to do that, all he pretty much has to do is come close to his season average scoring total. And that's before we even get into the assists. So I just think that number is a couple points too low.
Yeah, I believe that was actually the second time on the COVID list for Tatum. And he said this time was a lot less severe. So take that news for what you will. But all right, let's go over to the daily specials section on the DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to ask you your favorite bet there. So you can pick which team will have the most points tomorrow on the entire slate, which player will have the most assists. So either one of those bets. Is there anything there that catches your eye, Nick? Obviously you can pick from the teams or the player section.
To be honest, I was looking at that Celtics-Knicks game, which, I think we're seeing Knicks +1.5 right now at home in this game. And I feel like both these teams are kind of mired in similar slumps right now. Boston just can't seem to get any continuity going. New York, has had some absences and just really struggled to score the ball. Gary hit on, the slow pace that they've been playing at right now. The under in that game is something I would target. I would also look at Jaylen Brown's points, rebounds, assist prop. I know we just touched on Jayson Tatum's, but Jaylen Brown's is at 31.5 tonight. And, eventually you're probably going to see some of the numbers that he's put up lately be redistributed a little bit between some more of their contributors. But his last 8 games, he's scoring 31 points alone. And then you add in 7.5 rebounds, almost 3 assists. He's been on fire, had that 50-point game against Orlando over the weekend. So, we've talked a few player props. He's somebody that I'm targeting tonight. Okay.
So I have been informed that I had the old question there. So here's the actual question. Sorry about that, Nick. Celtics favored by 1.5 tonight. Now, who do you like? And then is there a specific bet in that game that we're looking for? So Nick already gave us his answer. Thank you, Nick, for saving the segment. Matt, let's go to you next.
I don't really have a strong feeling on this game. Like the game opened at Pick'em and the Celtics are -1.5 now. And I think that's justified. Like the Celtics should be small favorites. So if we were doing this segment last night and the Celtics were even money and you could bet them then, like, sure, I would have liked that. But yeah, it's tough because I think the Celtics are generally a pretty undervalued team right now. They just haven't been playing to their talent level, and they are a lot more talented than the Knicks are, but they're on a road back-to-back. They just lost a tough home game to the Spurs last night. Now they have to travel to New York from Boston. So like the schedule sets up better for the Knicks, and that's, I think, why this spread is closer. So this is just like a long-winded say of I'm leaning Celtics. Like I think the money line is reasonable, but I think it's pretty close to fair. So this is like very minimal value at best, but I do think the Celtics win the game.
All right, Gary, and you like Tatum. Do you like the Celtics though? That's the question.
Yeah, I would lean Celtics. I think right now, just sort of fading the Knicks in general. It's a team that's 5-11 ATS at home this season. They're actually 0-7 ATS their last 7 games as an underdog. They just don't seem to be able to beat teams. I don't want to say like good teams because the Celtics haven't really been that good the last 3 weeks, but teams that are at least in their stratosphere, they've struggled with immensely. And I think Matt's right. The books are catching up to this. The fact that the Knicks aren't favored in this game at MSG against a Celtics team on the second night of a back-to-back that's been losing games kind of really says it all. But yeah, I would lean Celtics. I would also lean to the under. as Nick was talking about. Again, the Knicks basically running fewer than 95 possessions per 48 minutes. That is from a different era of the NBA. So they also clearly know without a point guard that they just have to slow things down.
All right, there you go. So last question, guys. We got a rematch of the Western Conference Finals tonight. Clippers and Phoenix against the Sun. So kind of a double part question. Who do you like in this one? And then just your favorite bet overall from the game. So you can give me a couple if you want. Be semi-quick about it, but you don't have to be that quick. Let's go to Matt first.
Okay, so this is a rematch, from the Western Conference Finals, but there's a lot of different players here. We don't have Leonard and George. We don't have DeAndre Ayton. We still don't have JaVale McGee. So I'm leaning Clippers. I think the spread's a little too high given the Suns' weaknesses in the front court. And then Nick Batum is the situation we have to watch. He's questionable. So I'll give one for each side. If he's out, I like all sorts of Serge Ibaka props. And if he's in, I'm going the other way on Eric Bledsoe. I think his line is a little inflated. So I'd go under on him, but it looks better if Batum's out there, just one more body where they don't need to play Bledsoe as many minutes.
Okay. Garion, over to you.
Yeah, I think the one prop that's really caught my eye is Chris Paul's rebounding total. It's set at 4.5. This is a number that he's actually gone over his last 7 starts. He hasn't been crushing it by any means, but again, it's 7-0 in his last 7 games. No DeAndre Ayton, no JaVale McGee. Obviously, they've got Bismack Biyombo in there. They've got Jalen Smith, but I think Paul realizes he's got to help out on the glass maybe a little bit more than he normally would with Ayton not available. And the Clippers per 100 possessions give up the second most opponent rebounds per game. So I think without a lot of their best players, they're just missing shots, and that creates rebounding opportunities. So I think Paul should be able to get over this number.
All right, Nick. Garion likes Chris Paul, the center, tonight to go over his rebounding props. You got any prop or specific bet from this game for our viewers to target?
Yeah, I like the center gods rebounding total as well. Actually, that number jumped out as a little bit too low for me. But I'm going to keep kind of riding Cam Johnson, who I've been targeting a decent amount on the DK Sportsbook of late, and he's obviously been filling in for Jay Crowder, who's been in protocols for a while. And we're finally seeing them. I wouldn't say unleash Cam Johnson because that's not really the type of player that he is, but because the Suns have been so deep these last couple of years, he's often a guy that's playing 18, 21, 23 minutes on a lot of nights and not having a ton of impact. But he started 5 straight games, and even dating back, before Crowder was out, his last 8 games, he's playing almost 30 minutes. He's averaging 16 points a game. He's shooting 56% from the field and 53% from 3, taking almost 7 threes a game in that span. So I think he's continuing to build confidence. So I like his over on points tonight, which I believe is at 15.5 now.
All right, guys, there you got it. Little 4-game slate on the NBA to get you started. Advice. Thanks, dudes. We got more sportsbook advice coming up, though, so stick with us. From our NFL panel, I'll probably be part of that. I don't know who will be hosting. It might be me again. But before you do, here's Steve and Julian from Tuesday's Unreasonable Odds podcast. At least one bet they may take a look at in Week 18. So here's those guys to give you that bet right now.
Anything Sunday-wise? I might not play a spread this week if I'm being honest. I don't know if there's a spread that I'll play.
I think I'm still interested in Green Bay -2.5, right? At 2.5, I'm not playing it at 3. I'll play it at 2.5 though. As it stands right now, I'm fine with the 2.5 against the Lions.
I could easily see the Packers scoring the first touchdown, drifting off a little bit, and when Aaron Rodgers, who apparently is going to play, and the starters go to the bench, the Lions rally to end the season with a win.
Yep.
I would only play the Packers on the first half line.
No, that's fair.
Which could be larger than the full game line.
Yep. No, totally. It would make total sense. I mean, as it stands right now, though, if they go up a couple scores, is Detroit going to come back at them and be able? It's just because it's such a small number. No, yeah.
Because Detroit cares, and they already blew getting the first pick, so they might want to win.
Here's the nature. This is the nature of the board, right? When you're trying to make a case for this over everything else, that's just how this game's going to be. That's how this board's going to be. So if you ask me if there's another spread that I'd be interested in as of right now, it might still be that Packers -2.5. But that's why we do 2 shows, and that's why on Thursday I can be like, you know what? I trashed that idea. I don't like it anymore.
We will come back on Thursday with more. I'm playing around.
So here's a question. This week particularly, is this a time to take early value on these lines, or is this a week you wait?
totally case by case.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to the Sweat. I'm hosting now. It's exciting. It's great. And as Jeff talked about prior to that lovely clip from the Reasonable Odds podcast, we are back talking NFL Week 18 action. Everyone loves Week 18, but especially RotoWire's Alan Seslowski, Jeff Ulrich, and Pierce Dietrich. Let's get into this, guys. Let's talk some Week 18. Still a couple of awards that are up in the air heading into this Sunday and Saturday's action, but one that is still kind of interesting and is at plus odds. Coach of the Year. Everyone still technically a moneymaker on this list. Zach Taylor currently the favorite at plus 150, but is that the direction you are leaning, Jeff?
This one is interesting. I was looking at this one earlier in the week, and I know most people, Pierce probably expect me to pick Mike Vrabel, but I do think it's going to come down to between Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur of obviously the Green Bay Packers. And it's hard to like give one player an edge. I mean, I think both quarterbacks here are getting a ton of credit for their team's success. So you really have to think, what do the voters want to do? I'm going to lean Zach Taylor here. I just think that the turnaround from the Bengals this year, it's been too dramatic. Nobody was picking this team to win the division. I know there's a couple smart bettors out there. It took like plus 1,400 or whatever on the DraftKings Sportsbook that was available preseason. I wasn't one of them, but I do think that he's going to get credit for this huge turnaround. And it has been a huge turnaround. This is a team that's not just made the playoffs. They've beat their division against established veteran teams, good quarterbacks in the division like Lamar Jackson. Zach Taylor has dominated all these teams, and he's got them in a position now to have potentially like home field advantage throughout, at least in the first round. So I'm going to go Zach Taylor here. He's a slight favorite. And I think you're getting a little bit of value because I do think that he should be closer to plus 100 right now.
Thought you backed yourself out of that corner nicely. Good quarterbacks in that division, like Lamar Jackson when he's healthy, I guess. Pierce, how are you feeling about this particular bet on the DK Sportsbook?
I'm kind of disappointed. The bet that I want's not on the board. What about Urban Meyer? I feel like people laugh, but he managed to get himself out of Jacksonville pretty quickly. He got hired, realized, I've made a huge mistake. And instead of sticking around in a marriage for 20 years, he just hit the road immediately. I think that's an accomplishment. As far as what we have to pick from, the Taylor pick seems to be the way to go. I know the payout's not that great, but if you look at the trend for Coach of the Year, it typically goes to an elite team, which Green Bay is close, but they're not the elite team that got a Coach of the Year in the past. Or it goes to the turnaround team, the surprise coach, which Taylor fits that mold. So he's more than likely going to be it. If anyone steals it away from Taylor, I would say Vrabel at plus 300 is worth looking at because, I think they've had a soft schedule, but they've dealt with a lot of adversity and they've flat out won football games. Vrabel was a respected coach around the league. If someone's going to steal some votes away, it could be Vrabel at plus 300.
Alan, what do you think? Clean sweep here for Zach Taylor?
You can't lose to the Jets and the Bears and get Coach of the Year. Taylor's done a nice job, but he has talent. He was an underachiever last year. He's leveled out. Coaching is about maximizing your talent and over-delivering against expectations and thriving in adversity. Talking about coaches that weren't on the list, I scrolled down. I couldn't find Dan Campbell. Obviously, he won't get it, but he should. The Lions fight hard every week. They cover the spread at an incredible rate, but now back to earth. Mike Vrabel at plus 300 is the value pick. Remember what I said about losing to the Jets? Forget that for a second. Vrabel kept the team afloat without Derrick Henry, without A.J. Brown. If they are the one seed, and they most certainly will be if they take care of business here, he is the value play at plus 300.
Well, guys, going into Week 18, if you're looking for some divisional drama, bad news. There isn't a lot left. Only two divisions have yet to be decided. That is the NFC West in the AFC East. In the AFC East, if you think it's undecided, you're putting a lot of faith in the New York Jets to beat the Buffalo Bills this weekend. So, of the Bills and the Rams, Pierce, which one do you think is more likely to lose their divisional crown?
It's got to be the Rams. 49ers are a decent team. Rams almost lost last week. The Rams have been very consistent, so I think the Rams definitely going to lose. And if you look at the trends for the Bills or any team that's been a double-digit favorite, in the spot that the Bills are in, it's basically 13-2 straight up indoors, double-digit favorites going into the last week of the season against a losing record team, 6-0. There's just no way that the Bills lose this game. Whereas the Rams, it's very easy that they can drop this game.
Alan, do you agree with Pierce? Is there no way the Bills can possibly drop this game?
We said this earlier before, but if you think that they are a mortal lock, take every dollar you have. This is not directed only at Pierce because I've heard this before. Take every dollar you have and put it on the Bills money line. You won't do it. You know why? Because Vegas says there's a 6 or 7% chance that it won't happen. You would never get it on an airplane that has a 6% chance to crash, right? So you're not going to do it. So it's easy to say the Bills must win. They're going to win, but there is a chance. Now, that said, they're the most likely of the two, but the market also underprices the teams that don't have anything to play for. The Jets are going to show up and they're going to play 100%. They're playing for incentives. They're playing because they don't want the better draft pick. They want to keep their jobs. They don't want good players coming on the team. So I think that though the obvious pick here is the Rams are likely to hold on. The Bills are likely to hold on. It's not a mortal lock by any means.
Jeff, one thing we haven't even talked about yet in this segment, the Patriots would also have to beat the Dolphins in Miami, something they've been not so successful in late in the season the last couple of years. Is there any chance the AFC East is actually up for grabs here, or is it just the NFC West?
I mean, look, the Bills lost to the Jaguars this year. They've got there's numerous instances of the Bills just like not showing up or not being able to run the ball. Josh Allen just a little bit inaccurate. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen this week, but we do have numerous examples of it. So it's definitely not a mortal lock that this one's over. But like you said, there's numerous things that have to happen here. Like the Patriots would need a pretty big road win. I mean, I don't think the Dolphins are just going to, lean over and let the Patriots score 50 points like they did last week. I still think that the one that's up for grabs is definitely, though, it's the San Francisco Rams game. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is 5-0 against Sean McVay last 5 times these teams have met. So, he's got wins over them with like Nick Mullins starting at quarterback. Kyle Shanahan is kind of in Sean McVay's head. And maybe that leads to the fact that it just makes the Rams try a little bit harder to grab that win and really put them away. I can see that, but you've still got to think this game's going to be close. Like, I think it's going to come down to a last second field goal here with the 49ers and the Rams. So Rams are definitely the bigger chance at the upset, but I don't think anyone is a mortal lock this week. I think when the pressure gets ratcheted up, teams just tend to, make a few more mistakes too. And I think you will see one of these big favorites potentially get upset this week.
All right, so we're talking about teams that might win their division and might get in. Let's talk about teams that might win it all, at least their conference anyway. We know that as we get deeper and deeper into the playoffs, obviously the odds get shorter and shorter. So Alan, 2-part question. Is now the time to get some conference and Super Bowl bets in if you like a particular team? And when we look at the AFC playoff picture specifically, who's your favorite right now?
2-part question, 2-part answer. Yes and no. It's a bad time to bet one of the favorites because of all these unexpected scratches from COVID. Oh, you love Tampa Bay this week. That's great. Saturday night, Adam Schefter tweet. Boom. Blaine Gabbert starting. How do you feel about your bet right now? It's a great time to bet the long shots. Let's say you like the Raiders and the Chiefs round 1. I mean, that's an extreme example. The Raiders are, I think, plus 5,000 right now for the AFC. But hey, Patrick Mahomes is scratched. COVID list. Hey, okay, I like my odds now and so on and so forth. But if you're talking about just a value perspective, you got to love the Colts and you got to love the Patriots, 800 plus 800 and plus 750 respectively. I like the teams that run and beat you up. The Colts would be my favorite one in the AFC right now from a value perspective.
Alan brings up a good point, Jeff. It has been a very uneasy, even queasy year for futures bets. So can you possibly see yourself making a bet that's for actually 6 weeks down the line? And if you did have to, in the AFC specifically, where are you leaning?
I mean, look, it's a broken record at this point, but like the Titans are one win over Houston away from locking up the number 1 seed. And they're sitting there at 3rd in the odds. They have drifted down finally to plus 450. Like someone other than me has finally noticed this. But again, if you're looking to bet any one of the favorites, that's got to be the spot. They're about to get an extra week of rest and get Derrick Henry back. And they've got wins over the top 2 teams in the odds. I just don't know how you don't take advantage of that. Now, like Alan said, I don't know if like the favorites are really where you should be going. I think for the AFC, and I can't remember who it was, it might have been Pierce, the Chargers at plus 2,000. Obviously, they need to win this week, so you're taking a bit of risk, but that's kind of baked in here with those big odds. And this is a team that can certainly, stand toe-to-toe offensively with anyone in the AFC. If they get on the right side of a draw, maybe they do get like a COVID issue with their opponent. They could definitely be a team that makes a run here. So I think that's probably where I would be looking. The Raiders just seem like, I just don't think they're as good a team as the Chargers. So I would rather take the shorter odds on the Chargers. But for the AFC, I think there's at least a little bit of value on jumping on one of those long shot teams.
Pierce, is Jeff's memory correct? Or are you someone who's looking to back the Chargers right now?
That's correct. Chargers plus 4,000 to win the whole thing. And look to Alan's point, right? We've got COVID issues, and that's going to hurt the favorites. Well, the flip side of that is when those favorites get hurt, that means the underdogs benefit tremendously. And so why not take one of these longer shots? And Jeff alluded to this, that the Chargers offense has the skill players. They have an underrated offensive line. They can get it done. And it actually works well with their defense. Now, people give them a hard time. Oh, they give up all these rushing yards. They're terrible against the run. Well, that's part of the scheme. They play back. They prevent big passes. They prevent big pass plays, and they allow teams to run against them. But the way that it's supposed to work is if the offense gets rolling and they play at a fast pace, they force their opponent to abandon the run and pass and then play into the strength of the Chargers. It's really a brilliant scheme. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if that offense clicks in the playoffs, they can roll right through the AFC.
Okay, well, let's head right to the other side of the bracket. Jeff, is there an NFC team that you're looking at right now and thinking those odds are very tempting?
It's probably the Cardinals. I mean, like the 49ers, I mean, you could make a case for them, but I mean, they're underdogs to even make the playoffs. Like they're underdogs in their game today or on this Sunday. So I don't know how you can take plus 1,800. I just don't think that that's like you're getting a super deal or anything because you still need them to win a big game on the road. I think the Cardinals at plus 1,000. I just think you look at the top 5 teams. And is there really that big a difference between the Cardinals and Rams? Like I get that the Rams are going to have home field if they win, but both they're 1-1 in the season series, and you're getting the Cardinals at double the odds. So with Kyler Murray healthy, I think that's probably where the best value is. But I think the NFC odds are more appropriately priced now, and I think there's like less kind of reason to be diving in on the long shots there.
Pierce, do you have a particular lean in the NFC?
Yeah, there aren't really that many long shots in the NFC, but I will go a little bit further than the obvious Green Bay Packers pick and take the Cowboys at 1,100 to win it all. The biggest issue is how's this team going to win on the road? How's this team going to win if they have to go to Green Bay? And that is a concern. And you might be throwing your money away when the Cowboys have to go on the road eventually. But just on paper, Dak's fine. They've got a good offensive line. They've got the skill position. And then also winning in January and February requires great defense. And Dallas's defense is number 1 in terms of DVOA. And they're great at getting turnovers, which is one of the ways that they could get that surprise win on the road is by getting the turnovers and hanging in there in a game. So I think the Cowboys are worth a look.
Cowboys were getting a lot of buzz before that loss last weekend. Alan, you siding with the Cowboys, or is there another team you're looking at in the NFC?
Yeah, the problem doing the show with 2 sharp analysts is that you're not going to seem original when you go third. Even when they were undefeated, no one took the Cardinals seriously. And at plus 1,000, they're the best value right now on the board. Kyler Murray could take over a game. He still has that in his range of outcomes and in his tool bag. They should get Hopkins back. James Conner fills the role of bruiser, and they can win in tough environments. I think that nobody expects them to do anything. If you're in playoff pools where you're drafting players, the Cardinals won't. They're going to be great values, and at plus 1,000, that's where I would place my dollars.
Thanks so much, guys. That wraps up the NFL analysis for this episode of The Sweat. When we come back from the break, we will be talking NHL, but who will be the host? That's the more important question. We'll see you guys then.
Welcome back into the Sweat, guys. I am Jeff Orr, going to be hosting this last segment of the show. Got some NHL action coming at you. 11-game NHL slate. Big one in the, obviously on the ice tonight. We got Paul Bruno, AJ Schultz of RotoWire joining us here. And guys, first of all, thank you for coming in. 11 games, big one. We've got to break down this DFS slate for people. So first question, Paul, coming to you. Which player are you paying up for on the DFS side of things? Can be anyone, any position, anywhere. Go.
Well, Jeffrey, on a night when there are so many games, I don't like to stack an entire line per se, but would rather look for a duo that could be dynamic tonight. I've never used that line before, and I love the Batman series. I go with a pair of old reliables and Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, who priced at $7,800 and $7,600 respectively. They've combined for only 16 points in their last 10 games, which is a little low for them. So I think they're due for a breakout performance at home against Minnie. They're also a lot cheaper than the other line mates in the upper tier, that being McKinnon and Rantanen, who cost $9,500 and $8,600. That makes me feel even better about my Bruins picks tonight.
All right. Paul likes the Bruins, AJ. You got someone to target for us here?
Well, I can't believe Paul didn't choke getting Brad Marchand's name out of his mouth, because if you've listened to our podcast at all, you know that Paul's not a fan. Look, did you guys watch the Penguins game last night? Clearly Crosby has his legs back under him. And over the course of his career, he has decimated the Flyers to the tune of 49 goals. That's the most against any team. 115 points in 77 games. 2 of his 14 hat tricks have come against the Flyers. With what he has done to Philadelphia over the years, just used and abused them, 8,200 is honestly a steal for Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, lots of history there with Sid and the Flyers. Obviously, Penguins on a 9-game winning streak right now as well, just playing really, really solidly. Okay, so we got the guys we want to pay up for. Now we need a little value to fit them in. AJ, give us your best value play tonight.
Well, I'll start by sticking with the Penguins here. And look, it may not be an extreme value play, but Brian Rust has 5 goals in his last 2 games. He's coming in at under 6K, 5,500. Again, maybe that's not value. But certainly with a guy playing on Crosby's top line, it's a good spot to be in for that price range. If you want a more traditional, under 5K value guy, I like Tage Thompson with Buffalo. He comes in at 4,900. He's anchoring that top line. 12 goals on the year, 22 points. Both of those are team highs. And the Sharks have given up 23 goals since returning from the Christmas break in their last 4 games. So it's a good matchup for Buffalo as well.
Yeah, for sure. And Tage Thompson definitely, getting a lot of opportunity there, obviously on the Buffalo Sabres top line. Sharks, perhaps, maybe, a little regression happening here. Paul, AJ's mentioned the Penguins 10 times already. You have another team where there's some value available, or?
I'm about to gag on all those references. I got to say that. I like a couple of guys, Jeff. I like Henrik Borgstrom of the Blackhawks in this spot for $4,000. He's playing top line minutes at center alongside Patrick Kane and getting power play time too. I like the matchup against Arizona. It's a favorable one as well. Another guy I like in the lower end of the board tonight is San Jose left winger Alexander Barabanov, costing only $3,800 despite a first-line left-wing role that he's carved out for himself while producing 9 points in his last 10 games. So good value there. Tonight he gets a nice matchup in Buffalo against the Sabres. So those are 2 nice picks that I'll be trying to work into my lineup.
All right. We got 11-game slate. So there is some potential opportunity here for a couple shootouts. I got one game in mind that I'm going to mention myself later, but I'm going to let you guys go first. So which game is your favorite to go over on the goal total? Paul, start with you.
I got a couple here, Jeff. I think the Avs and the Jets combined for the most high-end skilled players on any single ice surface this evening, believing that they'll be combining forces easily to go over the 6-goal line tonight. And before AJ says this, I'm going to say it. The way the Pens are rolling right now, and with Philly's suspect net minding, Philly's suspect defense, and the mess in net, I think the visitors might get to the game total of 6 all by themselves in this rivalry matchup.
Getting out in front of it. That's the smart play. I like that. AJ, what's your favorite over on the slate tonight?
Well, I'm actually going to go back to that Sharks Sabres game. The Sabres offense hasn't been terrible. They haven't been great. And San Jose is just leaking goals. Now it looks like they'll get Aiden Hill back tonight and he'll start. So at least they won't get James Reimer, who's been pulled in 2 straight contests. But that goal total has just been ridiculous. The number of goals that they have given up in the last 4 games. And also they have managed to, put together some offense on their own during that run. Now, they won't have Logan Couture. Looks like probably not Erik Karlsson either. So I could see some concern there. But with it sitting at 6 and the fact that you can get plus 100 even money on that one, I like the over in that Sharks Sabres matchup.
All right. I'm surprised neither you mentioned the Devils and the Blue Jackets, but both those teams just allowing goals at an alarming rate right now. So that's another over. Definitely some potentially big shootouts, though, on the slate today. All right. 2 teams leading their division. Rangers visiting the Vegas Golden Knights today. Who do you like in this one, AJ? Is there a side you feel strongly about, or what are the odds about correct for this one? What do you think?
Well, if both Robin Lehner and Laurent Brossoit, actually, you know what? Scratch that. If just Robin Lehner is unavailable for this game, I'm 100% on the Rangers. Having said that, even if Lehner plays, like, they're not going to have Pacioretty. They probably are still going to be without Stone. Like, there's just so many concerns about the Golden Knights heading into this one. And then you add in the fact that you can get New York on the money line at plus 135. I love this bet tonight. Take the Rangers and walk away with some change.
All right. AJ likes the Rangers. He likes the value. Is there value there, Paul? What do you think?
I'm racing to the betting window with AJ on this one. The Rangers are on a 3-game win streak, outscoring their opponents 11-4. That tells me that they're doing it at both ends of the ice, just like they had much of the season. They're right near the top of the standings in the overall league standings. As those numbers show, the Metro Division leaders are a force right now, and they may get Panarin back in their lineup, so they're completely healthy otherwise. And meanwhile, the Knights, AJ said, they're missing 2/3 of their top line. The Rangers are getting much better work out of the goalies and playing with a better structure. So I think it's an easy pick to take them tonight.
Okay, so both on the Rangers there. We got one more question, guys, to wrap up the show here. Are there any upsets you see looming, like a team at big plus odds, or even just, semi plus odds here on the money line tonight? Be semi quick about it, but, give us your favorite underdog on the slate you want to target here.
I'll go first. I will make a case for Calgary as they visit Tampa tonight, Jeff. The Flames can match the Lightning in all aspects of their game with size, speed, and skill, and goaltending as well. They're tied for the league lead in road wins with 13, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they come away with the 2 points here. Take them to win and pay off at plus 120. I also like Detroit tonight as they go to Anaheim to face a depleted Ducks lineup that'll be without as many as 6 or 7 regulars among the forward ranks. Both teams have played well lately, but I don't think the home team should be favored at all, considering the status of their health as a lineup. Take the Wings at plus 120 here.
Yeah, Wings offense definitely picked up a little bit. AJ, you on that boat, or are you going somewhere else?
Yeah, I absolutely love the Wings. If especially if Zegras and Getzlaf are still sidelined, I think great value there. And then you add in, I mentioned the Sabres. They're down already today to just even money, but still, underdogs in that one. I like Paul's call on the Flames as well. They're sitting at plus 155 against the Lightning, so it's worth a shot there. And then I also think, Minnesota plus 140 going against Boston. That's not a knock on the Bruins. They're really good. They're not going to have Charlie McAvoy tonight, which is a big loss for them. So the amount of value you can get on Minnesota makes this a good spot to be in.
All right. Yeah. Lots of underdogs to target tonight. Lots of live dogs. That's going to be it though, guys, for the NHL. I mean, obviously for the show as well. Thanks for tuning in. And guys, we will definitely be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, just like usual. The Sweat will be back. But the question is, will I be back in the host chair? Will Jesse be back? Is Emerson out of a job? Probably. Tune in to find out though tomorrow. We do have the Madden Sims up next. Chiefs at Washington coming up at noon Eastern, and the slate 5 p.m. That's Adam Kaufman, Reed Fowler. They're going to go through the week 18 slate. Reed will probably talk a little bit about golf. Kaufman will probably mention the Patriots. Make sure you tune into that though, guys. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks a lot for tuning in.